We're going to start now. Have a little quiet, please. Thank you. We have a quorum. We're going to get started. Close the door. Thank you. To give our invocation this morning, the chair recognizes Reverend Marquis Johns, lead pastor of North Philadelphia Seventh-day Adventist Church. He is here today as a guest of Councilman Johnson, and also from the 5th Councilmatic District. All right, Reverend. Ask everyone to please stand.
Mr. Chair, I thank you for this opportunity to share. The Bible reminds us that we have been called to preach liberty to the captives, to preach to the oppressed, and to reach out to those who are downtrodden and disenfranchised. And with that in mind, I lead us in prayer this morning. God, we thank you that first and foremost, you woke each of us up this morning. For were it not for that, we would not have voices to utter on the floor or in any other capacity. And so today, God, as we undertake the business of tending to the city of brotherly love, we ask that you would infuse this place with the spirit reminiscent of what you said in Luke chapter 4, preaching liberty to captives and looking to set at liberty those who are oppressed. So bless us to that end, we ask, in none other name but the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Reverend. Appreciate it. Council, be at ease. Thank you. The next order of business is the approval of the journal of the meeting of Thursday, October 19, 2017, and the chair recognizes Councilman Greenlee.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the journal of the meeting of Thursday, October 19, 2017 be approved.
Second.
Thank you. It has been moved and properly seconded that the journal of the meeting of Thursday, October 19, 2017 stand approved. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it, and the journal is approved. The next order of business is request for leaves of absence, and the chair recognizes Councilman Heenan.
Good morning, Mr. President. Thank you. On behalf of the majority, a leave of absence has been requested for Councilwoman Blondell Reynolds Brown.
Chair thanks the gentleman. Chair now recognizes Councilman O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the Republicans, there are no requests for leave of absence.
Chair thanks the gentleman. Leave shall be granted for Councilwoman Blondell Reynolds Brown. At this time, I would like to dispense with the regular order of business, and I would like to welcome and I want to thank everyone who has come down to witness your government in action today. We hope your stay today is a knowledgeable one, but more importantly, a pleasurable one, so much so that you come back again. Again, thank you so much. This time, the chair recognizes Councilman Green, who will present a resolution recognizing Ms. Key DeLay. With Ms. DeLay and those accompanying her, please join the councilman at the podium. And joining Councilman Johnson, we have Councilman Jones and Councilman Green and Johnson.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here to recognize this outstanding individual for the work that she has done not only in the city of Philadelphia but across the nation, really uplifting the image and spirit of African American men. She's done a phenomenal job in doing that, as well as helping provide resources to our underserved African American men, especially those who are returning citizens and have come through some challenging perspectives. So it gives me great honor to present this resolution, and so I will read the following. Recognizing Kai DeLay, founder of the Made Men Initiative, for her work inspiring, educating, and outfitting underserved men. Whereas the Made Men Initiative is a national corporate and community initiative designed to honor the extraordinary achievements of notable African American male influencers for their leadership, lifetime achievement in their respective fields of work, social consciousness, and significant contributions to community empowerment, while building a bridge for the honorees to volunteer their resources to provide empowerment tools for underserved male youth and adult students with motivational mentoring workshops, educational scholarships, and donating business tire to Suit for Success. And
whereas Kai DeLay founded the Made Man Initiative 5 years ago, leading to the National Award Tour that began last year, which has already showcased over 300 role models and resulted in over 13,000 suits donated, of which 5 were mine. Offered mentor workshops for over 2,000 men and sponsored over 5,700 applications to HBCUs. And
whereas Kai DeLay utilizes her professional expertise, clinical skills, and lifestyle management for the greater good. And whereas Kai DeLay brings life into the conception of unique productions while upholding the principle that giving back is a lifestyle and responsibility. And whereas Kai DeLay is an avid believer in never turning a sky into a ceiling. Now for, be it
resolved by the Council of the City of Philadelphia, the Council does hereby recognize Kai DeLay, founder of the Made Man Initiative, for her work inspiring, educating, and outfitting underserved men. Further resolved that an engrossed copy of this resolution be presented to Ms. DeLay, evidencing the sincere admiration and respect of this legislative body. Introduced by myself, as well as council members Kenyatta Johnson, Curtis Jones, and supported by all members of City Council.
And the chair recognizes Ms. DeLay for remarks.
Well, thank you. This is quite an honor. Hi, Sherelle, alumni. Yes. Yeah. Well, this year has been quite a journey. We have actually honored over 600 African American male leaders nationally, collected over 18,000 suits, sponsored over 5,800 students to apply to HBCUs, and mentored over 300 students. And none of it could have been done without gentlemen like these councilmen that answer the phone calls, help us donate the suits, come and get honored and give back and not make it about them, but overall the legacy of fulfilling the community and serving underserved men all over the country. We are going international next year to 8 countries in Africa, so we really, really take this to heart when you take the moment to give me this award. This motivates me to continue the great work we're doing out here. None of this is about me. It's about these men who drop everything to make this work. I'm from Philly. This is such an honor. I'm just really humbled. Thank you so much.
Councilman Biddies. Thank you very much. That concludes our presentations. And our next order of business is communications, and the chair requests that the Sergeant of Arms delivers the messages from the mayor to the chief clerk. Mr. Decker, would you please read those messages?
To the President and members of the Council of the City of Philadelphia, pursuant to Sections 4604 and 2307 of the Home Rule Charter, I am today transmitting to the Council the recommendation of the City Planning Commission on the following bills. Bill numbers 170596, 170713, 170720, 170793, 170802, 170803, 170818, 170819, 170820, 170821, 170823, 170824, 170825, and 170856. And I am pleased to advise you that on October 25, 2017, I signed all the bills which were passed by Council at its session on October 12, 2017. And I am submitting herewith for the consideration of your honorable body an ordinance approving the plan, estimated costs, and proposed method of assessment and charges of the Center City District for and concerning business improvements and administrative services to the Central Business District of the City of Philadelphia for 2018 through 2022, amending an ordinance Bill Number 1069, approved November 2, 1990, as amended by Bill Number 960631, approved November 25, 1996, as further amended by Bill Number 120800, approved December 21, 2012, adopted pursuant to the Municipality Authorities Act of 1945, as amended, in order to add the Central Business District area to be served by the Center City District, the surface area of property more commonly known as the Viaduct Rail Park, and approving estimated costs for debt service through 2045, all under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Decker. You have any additional communications?
I have none, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. The next order of business is the introduction of bills and resolutions, and the chair recognizes Councilwoman Blackwell.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today I offer 4 privileged resolutions on behalf of Councilwoman Blondell Reynolds Brown, and 1 for myself.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Thank you.
A privilege resolution recognizing the service of women veterans in the United States of America and the extraordinary contributions of the Women Veterans Center.
This week's calendar.
And a privilege resolution recognizing October 22 through 28, 2017 as Lead Poisoning Prevention Week in the City of Philadelphia.
This week's calendar.
And a privilege resolution celebrating United Bank of Philadelphia on occasion of the 25th anniversary of its founding.
Again, this week's calendar.
And a privilege resolution recognizing the 50th anniversary of the Clean Air Council and the 35th anniversary of Joe Minot's service to the organization.
And that will be this week's calendar.
And a privilege resolution recognizing and honoring Joseph M. Starinieri for his service as an educator and for his passion and dedication for providing a quality education to underprivileged children.
This week's calendar. The chair recognizes Councilman Greenlee.
Thank you, Mr. President. On your behalf, I offer 1 resolution.
Thank you, Councilman.
A non-privileged resolution authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property to execute and deliver to the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority without consideration deeds conveying conditional fee simple title to certain city-owned lots and pieces of ground with the buildings and improvements thereon situated in the 43rd Ward of the City of Philadelphia.
And that'll be on next week's calendar. Chair recognizes Councilman Heenan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today I'll offer 1 bill.
Thank you, Councilman.
An ordinance to amend the Philadelphia zoning maps by changing the zoning designations of certain areas of land located within an area bounded by Cheltenham Avenue, Dittman Street, Cotman Avenue, Dittman Street, Bly Avenue, Edmund Street, Cotman Avenue, Van Dyke Street, Robin Street, Torresdale Avenue, Devereaux Avenue, and Hegerman Street.
And that bill will be referred to the appropriate committee. Chair recognizes Councilman Jones.
Good morning, Mr. President. I have 1 privileged and 1 non-privileged resolution.
Thank you, Councilman.
A privilege resolution recognizing and honoring the Universal Circus for 24 years of outstanding productions on a local and national level.
And that will be on this week's calendar.
And a non-privileged resolution calling on the Pennsylvania General Assembly to amend Section 412.2 of the Pennsylvania Election Code to increase the minimum compensation provided to election officers and workers, which has not been increased in decades.
Next week's calendar. Chair recognizes Councilman Johnson.
Thank you, Council President. I have 6 privileged resolutions, 1 non-privileged resolution, and a very important privileged resolution introduced on your behalf regarding the safety and well-being of young people around guns. I know we lost a couple young people specifically in your district as recently as last week to the irresponsible use of handguns. Thank you, Council President, for your leadership.
Thank you, Councilman.
A privilege resolution designating the week of Sunday, November 12, 2017 through Saturday, November 18, 2017 as Child Gun Safety Awareness Week in the City of Philadelphia.
This week's calendar.
And a privilege resolution honoring and recognizing Philadelphia Sunday Sun and its founder, Jerome Jerry Montazar, on the occasion of the Sun's 25th anniversary.
This week's calendar.
And a privileged resolution honoring and recognizing Claudia Sherrod for her dedication to improving her neighborhood, Point Breeze, on the occasion of her retirement as Executive Director of South Philadelphia Homes, Inc.
This week's calendar.
And a privileged resolution honoring and commending Chicky and Pete's for 40 years as an iconic Philadelphia establishment.
This week's calendar.
And a privileged resolution authorizing Council's Standing Committee on Transportation and Public Utilities to hold hearings on the Philiport Capital Investment Program and future development of the port.
This week's calendar.
And a privileged resolution authorizing the Standing Committee on Legislative Oversight to hold hearings to examine progress in implementation of Tax Reform Commission recommendations, the impact of implemented recommendations, and further opportunities for enhancing the competitiveness of Philadelphia's tax structure.
And that will be this week's calendar.
And a non-privileged resolution appointing Blaine Stoddart to the Board of Directors of the Philadelphia Land Bank.
And that will be on next week's calendar. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Kenyatta Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. President. No bills or resolutions.
Thank you, Councilwoman. And the chair recognizes Councilman Green.
Thank you, Council President. I have one privileged resolution.
Thank you, Councilman.
A privileged resolution recognizing Kai Daly, founder of the Made Man Initiative, for her work inspiring, educating, and outfitting underserved men.
And that will be on this week's calendar. And the chair recognizes Councilwoman Parker.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have two bills.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
An ordinance terminating a no parking regulation on Ivy Hill Road between Mansfield Avenue and Hazelwood Drive, northeast entrance, south side.
Referred to committee.
And an ordinance establishing a one-way regulation on Hazelwood Drive at Ivy Hill Road.
And that will be referred to committee. And the chair recognizes Councilman Don.
Morning, Council President. I have one privileged resolution today.
Thank you, Councilman.
A privileged resolution recognizing and celebrating the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation's 50th anniversary as they honor the patients, caregivers, and professionals who strive to achieve a future free of Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis.
And that will be on this week's calendar. The chair recognizes Councilwoman Gim.
Good morning, Council President. No bills or resolutions today.
Thank you, Councilwoman. No problem. Chair recognizes.
I am sorry, but I have two privileged resolutions. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman.
A privileged resolution recognizing Drexel University and the Task Force Dragon Battalion of the Reserve Officer Training Corps for providing a veteran-friendly community and producing quality leaders from the city of Philadelphia over the last 99 years.
And that will be on this week's calendar.
And a privileged resolution honoring and recognizing the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts for its over 200-year history of providing Philadelphia with exhibitions on fine art, outstanding educational opportunities for artistic students, and for their fundraising abilities.
And that will also be on this week's calendar. Chair recognizes, oh, you got one more? Mr. Decker? Is that it? That it? Two. Chair recognizes Councilman O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no bills or resolutions.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilman Squilla.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have one bill and one non-privileged resolution.
Thank you, Councilman.
An ordinance approving the plan, estimated costs, and proposed method of assessment and charges for the Center City District for and concerning business improvements and administrative services to the Central Business District of the City of Philadelphia for 2018 through 2022.
And that will be this week's calendar. Was it Bill? That will be referred to the appropriate committee.
And a non-privileged resolution authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property to execute and deliver to the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority without consideration deeds conveying conditional fee simple title to city-owned lots of pieces of ground with the buildings and improvements thereon, situated in the 25th Ward of the City of Philadelphia.
And that will be on next week's calendar. And the chair recognizes Councilwoman Bass.
Good morning, Mr. President. I offer one privileged resolution and one non-privileged.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Thank you.
A privilege resolution authorizing the Committee on Public Health and Human Services to hold hearings on the Department of Human Services Community Umbrella Agency scorecard.
And that will be on this week's calendar.
And a non-privileged resolution authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property to execute and deliver to the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority without consideration deeds conveying conditional fee simple title to certain city-owned lots and pieces of ground with the buildings and improvements thereon situated in the 12th Ward of the City of Philadelphia.
And that'll be on next week's calendar. Chair recognizes Councilman O.
Thank you very much, Council President. I offer one bill and may be heard after the title is read.
Certainly, thank you, Councilman.
Thank you very much.
An ordinance amending Section 9627 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Commercial Establishments on Residential Block Faces by revising requirements and making related changes.
Chair recognizes Councilman O.
Thank you very much, Council President. First, I'd like to say that I'm introducing for consideration of our council body an amendment. There's nothing wrong with the bill itself. Unfortunately, the bill has resulted in some problems, which I think a amendment, a clarification would help. And I would like to say that I think it is appropriate because, unfortunately, the way it has turned out, however it has happened, the city's enforcement of this bill is very discriminatory and unjust. This bill is being enforced by the police because L&I is not enforcing the bill. This bill is being enforced by the police because L&I has not written any regulations or process to enforce it fairly, and probably the entire process of enforcing the bill is illegal, probably. The bill is being enforced in commercial areas where the bill does not apply, and where it does apply, it is being enforced against businesses very unevenly and unfairly. It's being enforced against some businesses and not others. In particular, 96% of the businesses that were closed and fined by the police were only Chinese takeout restaurants. That is very strange. The Chinese population in this city might be 1%, and 96% of the violations are against only Chinese takeout restaurants. People will say they're getting fined and closed by the police because they're doing something wrong, and that's the beginning of the problem. When the police go someplace and do something, people assume those people must be doing something wrong. The next thing is when people say, well, I think they're being discriminated against, but they deserve it. And we've heard that many times in our country. We've heard it with African Americans, we've heard it with LGBT, we've heard it with Irish Americans, we've heard it with Italian Americans, with Jewish Americans, Muslim Americans. We could go down the line. The good news is our country stands for values and the wonderful experiment that we can govern ourselves, and the second experiment that all of us diverse people can do that fairly and appropriately within the democratic process. One of the things that I would like to say is that the double standard that has existed throughout the history of America is problematic. And I'm going to speak up about it just a little bit because it's oftentimes not understood. I will have people say to me, well, you know, the Chinese didn't participate in the civil rights movement, and therefore this is what they get. I will have other kind of statements like that, which is very grossly unfair and unsubstantiated. But let me start with this. In 1790, you could not be a citizen unless you're a white man. Couldn't be. And in 1882, Congress passed a law that excluded the Chinese, or anyone who looked Chinese, from coming to the United States or becoming a citizen. That did not end until 1943. And we've had generations of Americans born in this country of Asian ancestry who could not vote anyway. And they were forced to carry papers that proved where they lived. You could be born in America, a third generation, and you had to have papers to prove that you lived in a house somewhere in the United States or you would be deported. And I tell people the reason we have all these immigration laws that we're now talking about is not because of the Mexicans or the Muslims, it was because of the Chinese. The Chinese Exclusion Act excluded Chinese from coming to this country. And if you were a citizen, If you left this country, the federal government would not let you back in. And the United States government pressured Canada to exclude Chinese, and it tried to pressure Mexico, but the Mexicans did not want to be under pressure from the U.S., and so we built up the southern border. In 1871, in Los Angeles, there was a mass lynching, which almost nobody heard of. Nobody remembers because it's not taught in the history books. 500 people went through the Chinese area of Los Angeles, going into homes, stealing property, stealing items, smashing things, and they took out 18 people, Chinese Americans, shot them and lynched them. But the law in Los Angeles, as in many parts of this United States, was that people of Chinese ancestry were not allowed to testify against white people. That's the history of our country. In 1910, Pittsburgh passed an ordinance. Fortunately, the mayor vetoed it. I think there were about 45 council members. 43 of them voted for an ordinance that Chinese restaurants had to close earlier than any other restaurant, and that women could not eat or work in a Chinese restaurant. That was 1910 in Pittsburgh. That was not unusual because throughout the history of that time period, from after and before the Civil War, through that period of time, Chinese restaurants were competing with other restaurants, Chinese restaurants and Chinese laundries, because despite all the suppression, Chinese couldn't go to school. All the suppression, the Chinese found places where they could make money. Laundry and restaurants were one of those. And so the laws were passed throughout the United States that forbade women and others. The AFL in that time issued a statement to all the legislators that beer and noodles are the corruption of America. Beer and noodles. And so we have seen after that the Japanese who purchased farms lose all their farms because they were the enemy in World War II, and so many of their children served in the United States military and were highly decorated in World War II. In 1982, Vincent Chin, a Chinese American who served in our military, was at a bar when two men approached him in Detroit and said, because of you Japanese, we're unemployed. They started to beat him in the bar. He ran out. That's called a break in the action for the lawyers. They chased him outside, beat him up some more. He ran away. They grabbed a couple of baseball bats from their car, chased him down the street, and beat him to death in front of McDonald's. He was given probation, manslaughter, and the judge said, these are good people. The family reached out to all the civil rights organizations, and none of them responded, in part because of this problem, the model minority issue. And so that issue arises because some people, typically identified as Republicans, say, look at the Asians, they're doing very well in our country, why do other people have a problem? And the other folks, typically Democrats, say, because they are light-skinned and they've received a lot of favoritism from white America, and we call them Democrats. Well, neither is true. Both are very ignorant statements. Many Asian Americans face discrimination, poor education, health issues. They don't have insurance and things like that. Yes, some Asian Americans are doing well despite all these problems. And again, they're not the only group of people. Women have not been able to vote, African Americans, Caribbean, African immigrants, many people in our country. So it's a continuing issue of how we treat ourselves fairly and not rely on prejudice and unfounded statements. Today, ALDEF, the Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund, will serve this city with a letter to desist enforcement of this very unfair process. I thank the mayor and the police department for the temporary suspension of the enforcement that is very selective and discriminatory. But it's not enough. We do and should, as a body, amend this law to be clear and logical so that it serves its good purpose that it was written for. And I appreciate the members of this council, yourself especially, Council President, for your leadership in always trying to ensure that our city leads the way in fairness and equity for all people. I will say that many of the people here today they are struggling. Many of them don't have a great deal of education. They couldn't get a job anywhere else. Just like the other people we talked about, they have to find a way to earn money for themselves with the thinnest of margins. They make their money by not turning on the heat. They work 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's how they do it, and these fines are not only illegal, they're crippling their businesses. So with that, I would ask everyone in Philadelphia, all fair-minded people, and especially our legislative body and our mayor, to ensure that our process is fair, that we send a message to the people that it is not okay to discriminate, and that we enforce the laws fairly and appropriately. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Thank you, Councilman. That bill will be referred to the appropriate committee. That concludes our introductions of bills and resolutions. We apparently don't have any reports from committee, so we will move towards the consideration of the calendar. There are no bills on a first reading calendar today, so the chair recognizes Councilman Heenan for the purpose of calling up bills and resolutions on the final passage calendar today.
Thank you, Mr. President. The following resolutions of bills are being called up for second reading and final passage calendars today. Bill numbers 170908, 170910, 170913, 170915, 170916, 170918, 170674-A, 170683, 170720, 170802, and 170724. All other resolutions of bills are being held.
Thank you very much, Councilman. Before considering these bills and resolutions that are on our final passage calendar today, we will have our public comment session. It will go as follows. If you have an interest in testifying on a bill or resolution that is on the final passage today and you've not already done so, you sign it at the table to my left. When your name is called, you go to the middle of the council chambers. There's a podium. On that podium, there's a device. When that light turns green on that device, it will be your time to speak. When that light turns yellow, you will have 30 seconds to conclude your remarks. When that light turns red, we'd ask that you please adhere to our guidelines and conclude your remarks. Thank you very much for your anticipated cooperation. Mr. Decker, please call the first name of the individuals on the witness list.
Lynn Robinson. Commenting on 170908.
Morning.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Lynn Robinson. I'm a retired Philadelphia public school teacher. I'm the founder and chair of the Germantown Against the Gas Plants. Thank you for maintaining this democratic process of allowing public comment. I wish to begin with resolution number 170408, introduced by Councilwoman Reynolds Brown and Helen Gim. The resolution calling on and urging the School District of Philadelphia to permanently prohibit the suspension of elementary-age students from the 1st through 5th grades. This is an attempt at its root to protect young children from unfair, racially discriminating punitive discipline, and to rescue young people from the school to prison pipeline. As a retired school teacher, I remember observing different reactions on the part of some teachers and principals toward students of color when they broke school rules. However, I would urge City Council to take some time with this and create a team of educators and parents to discuss in depth what is making children misbehave or act out and disrupt classrooms, sometimes preventing any instruction for days until they are suspended. The roots of negative school climate are multiple. We no longer have enough teachers of color in public schools, so black and brown students see very few role models that look like them. Why is school so difficult these days? One reason is that teachers are handed a child-unfriendly curriculum designed to get results on standardized tests. Our schools are pressure cookers, partly because of large class size and the promotion of competition between students. This leads to stigmas and pressures attached to quantitative, not qualitative, individual evaluations. If City Council wants to suspend punitive punishments, please provide the alternative answers that actually work. Principals need options other than suspension before suspension is removed from their toolbox. If all public school students had fields to run in and gardens to plant and ways to explore their innate talents in the same way that wealthy suburban students do, would we be talking about suspensions? If public school students in Philadelphia had clean air to breathe, clean water to drink, and healthy and delicious food to eat, a more comfortable and healthy student population would be less needy at the biological level. And this brings me to speak in support of Councilwoman Reynolds Brown's resolution number 170907. I don't know what that, okay. Urging the Trump administration to rescind its decision to repeal the Clean Power Plan. In support of President Obama's Clean Power Plan, I challenge City Council to follow its intention at the local level. Please face and accept the science of the natural gas process. Carbon dioxide is not the only climate-changing gas, and coal is not the only dirty fossil fuel. Natural gas is not an acceptable fuel. If we want to reverse climate change and protect lungs, blood vessels, and brains, the natural gas process causes significant global warming due to methane leaks. I think I'm out of time. What I'm asking you to do is not allow SEPTA to build a polluting power plant on the border of Nicetown and East Falls if you really want to protect the students and children of this city.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony, ma'am.
Sandra Fuller. Commenting on 170908.
Morning.
Good morning. I stand here today in support of Resolution 170908, a resolution naming 1300 South 46th Street, Ruby Knight Way, in honor of the Woodland Avenue community historian and a beloved resident of the Woodland Avenue community. Ruby Knight was a longtime resident of Woodland Avenue community. She died on October 16, 2015 at the age of 89. Although Miss Ruby, as she was affectionately called, was born in Irwinton, Georgia, she moved to Philadelphia as an infant with her parents during the Great Migration from when 5 million Southern blacks migrated to the North beginning in 1915 to escape the Jim Crow era of the South. The family settled in a house on St. Mark Street near 42nd and Woodland Avenue, where they grew to include 10 children. Miss Ruby was educated in Philadelphia public schools and graduated from Bartram High School, where she walked 3 miles to school and never missed a day throughout her entire years of schooling. Some said that that's why she knew so much, because she was always present. Ruby was widowed at an early age and began an early career at the Veterans Administration that lasted 30 years to support her young children, Frank, Martin, and Colette. It didn't take long before she was practically running the office, and if someone wanted to know something, well, they would just ask Ruby. Several years after her retirement from the VA, Ruby became restless, and at 65 years old, returned to the workforce as a teacher's assistant for the Philadelphia Public Board, where she worked 10 years. Her duties involved caring for infants of teen mothers after they returned to school. She took great pride in being an encouragement to the young mothers. Ruby was a member of the Mount Zion Baptist Church 50 years at Woodland Avenue, at 50th and Woodland Avenue, and for 74 years, and was very active in church functions and clubs. She was a member of the Senior Guild, Progressive Co-workers, and the History and Heritage Committee. She took pride in supporting the events surrounding the church's 100th church anniversary before her passing. Ruby's window to the world was her front porch. She was across the street from the neighborhood school where she had attended 80 years previously. She enjoyed interfacing with children on their way to and from school. She seemed to know all the children, their siblings, their parents. Ruby's knowledge of the Woodland Avenue community and its rich history was indisputable. She prided herself in the accuracy of the information and enjoyed sharing it with all those who were eager to listen. She was an avid supporter of the continuance of the Woodland Avenue reunion and all things enhancing Woodland Avenue heritage. As the Woodland Avenue quickly evolves, it is important that and fitting that Ruby Knight's name be added to the street sign at 46 and Woodland Avenue to serve as a footprint and reminder of the people who lived in Woodland Avenue community prior to the transition and their rich heritage. Her family continues to live in that community and are active and integral part of that community. Respectfully submitted. Thank you.
Brad Wilson,
Thank you.
commenting on 170907.
All right, hello, everybody. I'm Brad, okay. Hello, everybody. I'm Brad Wilson.
Good morning.
What I came to talk about, well, guys, don't get mad. It's not the issues here. What I came about is everybody, I ride bicycle to get around town. Oh, I'm trying to. All right, but I ride bicycle around town to get around. What I have is my old Swin Varsity my dad bought me when I was in high school. The bike's 40 years old. Everybody, this morning at exactly 8:20, I was hit by a car. It was a hit-and-run accident. Thank God I don't have serious injuries. My right knee's killing me. I'm dead in pain. August 31st, at the same time, they're both on Thursday, I was hit by a car again, and I had stitches in my eyes. My face was road rash for 2 weeks. My bike was almost damaged. I managed to put it back together and start riding it last week. Now I'm hit, and now I can't ride the bike again. Something needs to be done about the safety laws and rules and guidelines of riding bicycle in the street. Each time I was hit by a white car making a left turn.
Excuse me 1 minute, sir. Are you talking about the Clean Air Act?
No, Daryl, it has nothing to do with your issues. It's a fact that we can't ride in the street safely.
All right, so,
and I'm
sir,
hit by a car twice, Daryl.
Hold on 1 second. So you're supposed to talk about the issue on the calendar today, on a bill or resolution.
I know.
So you're not really talking about the Clean Air Act.
No, I'm not. It's just it's a safety issue.
I understand. No, I understand, and we're more than likely very shortly going to have a conversation around bike lanes. With this, the guidelines that say that you're supposed to talk about, and people sometimes pay us no mind and all of that, right? But well, I'm just saying, it's not a free-flowing opportunity to talk about anything in the world. It's supposed to be about what's on the calendar. You should go to a council person, particularly council members. A lot of council members are very interested in bike issues, safety, the whole 9 yards, and there's going to very shortly be an extensive conversation about. Matter of fact, I introduced some legislation. All right. Yeah, well, at some point she will be moving on that. So, but we'll make sure we get your name, and we're going to make sure you get invited to come in and talk about that. And if there's a specific issue relating to, and unfortunately, sorry about what happened, we can just deal with that. Thank you, sir.
Michael Meng, commenting on 170907.
My name is Michael R. Meng, 7314 Devon Street, Philadelphia 19119. I'm here today to speak in favor of the importance and necessity of this council approving the resolution proposed by Councilwoman Reynolds Brown, urging the executive administration in Washington to rescind its decision to repeal the Clean Power Plan. This decision on the part of the Trump administration displays a mean and insensitive draconian indifference to the needs and well-being of hundreds of millions of people by prioritizing profit for long-established interests and an irresponsible national weakness for fast profit speculation, both over intelligent respect for the long-term health of everyone in the U.S. and the wide variety of other species that we now know are always harmed by such human action. The weight of scientific evidence has made clear that half measures benefiting the status quo are not good enough. The U.S. has already begun turning from fossil fuel to renewable energies. The city of Philadelphia must play a fully honest part by opting in favor of those hard choices that will make clear its honest commitment to be a part of the solution. Supporting this resolution is a minimal step in the right direction. It must be approved, and that approval must be given further real life in Philadelphia. Beyond that, there is an ever wider variety of tangible options splaying out from a base commitment to the shift to renewable energy. Today, the vast majority of those options are predominantly invisible in Philadelphia because of the lack of any plan built upon a true commitment to that shift. Not only should the City of Philadelphia approve Councilwoman Reynolds Brown's proposal, but it should legislate to establish its own plan, and it should take the tangible steps open to it today by, for example, making certain that SEPTA's effort to build a gas-powered generation plant in Nicetown is brought to a clean and final stop, and that no other fossil fuel generation plants or infrastructure in the city get any listening for furtherance at all. Fossil fuel generation is anathema to human health. It is only bad faith denial prioritizing selfish and indifferent fear of loss that denies these things today. And it is only your true commitment to admitting this hard fact that can set yourselves aright as the necessary gatekeepers that you are, occupying our city's common seats of power today. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you for your testimony, sir.
Joe Danahill, commenting on 170910, 970915, 970916, and 970918.
Morning.
Morning. This is official decree of the people and writ mandamus quo warranto, and as such requires immediate action and remedy. Every week, this council, mayor, and others transfer private property to the government, probably illegally. Every week, this council, mayor, and others is notified of possible illegal and immoral acts committed by council, mayor, and others. Yet there is no action. U.S. legal defines depraved, reckless indifference as to disregard the risks attending defendant's conduct. Council, address crime with, if you see something, say something. What law allows taking property without compensation? Should the people let the government become the legalized version of the criminals, as Jefferson warned against? Did Congress, Senate, and General Accounting Office issue documents directing amounts of just compensation owed in the Logan? Was federal taxpayer money used as lawfully directed? What good is saying something if government refuses to prosecute violations? Is this how a sanctuary city acts against its own sovereign people? If violating one law one time would put average persons in jail, why is there no investigation and prosecution by federal or Commonwealth attorney generals? Is upwards of $100 million federal taxpayer dollars to be given to a contractor to build a wall, a mall on my stolen home? The Constitution and the laws require immediate remedy of this breach of law, breach of close, breach of fiduciary duty. Your oath of office requires you to act or face prison. 42 U.S.C. 1982, 1983, 1985, 1986, 1987, 18 U.S.C. 241, 242, 23A1, 23A4. PA Constitution, Article 1, Sections 1 through 11. 26 PA CSA 703, 705, 708, 709, 712, 713, 716, and other laws listed in SCOTUS 158965, 141330, 144056 appear violated. I call for the federal and Commonwealth governments to perform their constitutional obligations, to investigate and prosecute all involved in the theft and illegal deed transfer of my home, 1038 West Wyoming. The denial of God-given 42 U.S.C. 1982 property rights for 23 years is egregious, extraordinary, oath-violating, and requires immediate remedy. A just government must obey the rule of law. This color of law government must have its charter to govern revoked until a constitutionally compliant government is installed. Public servants cannot refuse their sworn duty to act any more than a fireman can refuse to fight a fire. The sovereign people require Constitution and laws be enforced. It takes a lot of cooperation to create and allow monumental.
Thank you for your testimony, sir.
There are no other speakers on the public comment list, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Mr. Decker. We will now continue our calendar. And if you will please read the title. Hold on. Oh, okay, here we go. Had the wrong one. Please read the title of 170908.
A resolution also naming the 1300 South 46th Street, Ruby Knight Way, in honor of the Woodland Avenue community historian and a beloved resident of the Woodland Avenue community.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Blackwell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, the ayes have it. 170908 is adopted. Mr. Decker, 170910.
A resolution authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property to execute and deliver to the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority without consideration deeds conveying conditional fee simple title to certain city-owned lots and pieces of ground with the buildings and improvements thereon situated in the 43rd Ward of the City of Philadelphia.
Chair recognizes Councilman Greenlee.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the adoption of the resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it. 170910 is adopted. Mr. Decker, 170913.
A resolution affirming the right of people with disabilities to technology and information access.
Chair recognizes Councilman Green.
Thank you, Council President. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it, and Resolution 170913 is adopted. Mr. Decker, 170915.
A resolution approving the redevelopment contract of the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority for the redevelopment and urban renewal of a portion of the New Kensington Fishtown urban renewal area identified by house number and street address as 2610 Frankford Avenue.
Chair recognizes Councilman Squilla.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, ayes have it. 170915 is adopted. Mr. Decker, 170916.
A resolution authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property to execute and deliver to the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority without consideration deeds conveying conditional fee simple title to certain city-owned lots and pieces of ground with the buildings and improvements thereon situated in the 39th Ward of the City of Philadelphia.
Chair again recognizes Councilman Squilla.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the resolution. Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, ayes have it. 170916 is adopted. Mr. Decker, 170918.
A resolution authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property to execute and deliver to the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority without consideration deeds conveying conditional fee simple title to certain city-owned lots and pieces of ground with the buildings and improvements thereon situated in the 59th Ward of the City of Philadelphia.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Bass.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it. 170918 is adopted. Mr. Decker, 170674A.
An ordinance amending Section 10825 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Stun Guns by further providing for the regulation of stun guns, also known as electric or electronic incapacitation devices.
This bill has been heard on two separate days. The question is, shall the bill pass finally? Mr. Decker, call the roll.
Councilwoman Bass. Councilwoman Blackwell. Councilman Dom. Councilman Green. Councilman Greenlee. Councilwoman Gim. Councilman Heenan. Councilman Johnson. Councilman Jones. Councilman O'Neill. Councilman O. Councilwoman Parker. Councilwoman Gunnar Sanchez. Councilman Squilla. Councilman Toppenberger. Council President Clark.
Aye, the ayes are 16, the nays are 0. Majority of members present voting in affirmative, the bill passes. Mr. Decker, please read the title of 170683.
An ordinance continuing the Port Richmond Industrial Development Enterprise Neighborhood Improvement District beyond its termination date in the area bounded generally by the north side of Allegheny Avenue, the west side of Medford Street between Allegheny Avenue and East Westmoreland Street, the south side of East Westmoreland Street, The property line of 3300 Agate Street and the back of properties facing west along the east side of Tulip Street between Westmoreland and Ontario Streets, the south side of Ontario Street, the west side of Tulip Street between Ontario and Tioga Streets, the north side of Tioga Street, the back of properties facing west on the east side of Tulip Street between Tioga and Venango Streets, the back of properties facing south along the north side of Venango Street, including the property located at 2301 through 07 East Venango Street, and the back of properties facing east along the west side of Amherst Street, as well as the properties located at 2066 through 80 East Tioga Street and 2082 East Tioga Street. Continuing, the Port Richmond Industrial Development Enterprise, Inc., a Pennsylvania nonprofit corporation, is a neighborhood improvement district management association for the district.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Bass. You got an amendment? Oh, I'm sorry. Bass for Squilla. My fault. Chair recognizes Councilman Squilla.
Thank you, Mr. President. An amendment has been circulated to all members of council, and I move for that amendment.
Thank you. It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. 170683 has been amended. It will be on our second reading and final passage calendar at our next session of council. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Decker, 170720.
An ordinance authorizing the body upon city plan numbers 146 and 271 of two rights-of-way for sewer and drainage purposes and the striking from said city plans and abandoning of all or portions of four other rights-of-way for various utility purposes, all lying within the area southeast of Delaware Avenue and northeast of Ellen Street.
This bill has been heard on two separate days. The question is, shall the bill pass finally? Mr. Decker, call the roll.
Councilwoman Bass. Councilwoman Blackwell. Councilman Dom. Councilman Green. Councilman Greenlee. Councilwoman Gim. Councilman Heenan. Councilman Johnson. Councilman Jones. Councilman O'Neill. Councilman O. Councilwoman Parker. Councilwoman Corona Sanchez. Councilman Squilla. Councilman Taubenberger. Council President Clark.
Aye, the ayes are 16 and nays are 0. Majority of members present voting in affirmative, the bill passes. Mr. Decker, 170802.
An ordinance authorizing Mark Malini to install, own, and maintain various pedestrian enhancement encroachments at 701 through 39 Market Street.
This bill has been heard on two separate days. The question is, shall the bill pass finally? Mr. Decker, call the roll.
Councilwoman Bass. Councilwoman Blackwell. Councilman Dom. Councilman Green. Councilman Greenlee. Councilwoman Gim. Councilman Heenan. Councilman Johnson. Councilman Jones. Councilman O'Neill. Councilman O. Councilwoman Parker. Councilwoman Corona Sanchez. Councilman Squilla. Councilman Taubenberger. Council President Clark.
Aye, the ayes are 16, the nays are 0. Majority of members present voting in affirmative, the bill passes. Mr. Decker, 170724.
An ordinance amending Title 15 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Parks and Recreation by requiring the public posting of hours of operations for libraries and recreation centers.
This bill has been heard on two separate days. The question is, shall the bill pass finally? Mr. Decker, call the roll.
Councilwoman Bass. Councilwoman Blackwell. Councilman Dom. Councilman Green. Councilman Greenlee. Councilwoman Gim. Councilman Heenan. Councilman Johnson. Councilman Jones. Councilman O'Neill. Councilman O. Councilwoman Parker. Councilwoman Corona Sanchez. Councilman Squilla. Councilman Taubenberger. Council President Clark.
Aye, the ayes are 16, the nays are 0. Majority of members present voting in affirmative, the bill passes. Mr. Decker, you have any additional resolutions?
A resolution recognizing the service of women veterans in the United States of America and the extraordinary contributions of the Women Veterans Center, introduced by Councilwoman Blackwell on behalf of Councilwoman Reynolds Brown.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Blackwell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed? Ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution recognizing October 22 through 28, 2017 as Lead Poisoning Prevention Week in the city of Philadelphia, introduced by Councilwoman Blackwell on behalf of Councilwoman Reynolds Brown.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Blackwell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution celebrating United Bank of Philadelphia on occasion of the 25th anniversary of its founding, introduced by Councilwoman Blackwell on behalf of Councilwoman Reynolds Brown.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Blackwell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it. That resolution is adopted.
And a resolution recognizing the 50th anniversary of the Clean Air Council and the 35th anniversary of Joe Minot's service to the organization, introduced by Councilwoman Blackwell on behalf of Councilwoman Reynolds Brown.
Chair again recognizes Councilwoman Blackwell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it. That resolution is adopted.
And a resolution recognizing and honoring Joseph M. Stavanieri for his service as an educator and for his passion and dedication for providing a quality education to underprivileged children, introduced by Councilwoman Blackwell.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Blackwell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution recognizing and honoring the Universal Circus for 24 years of outstanding productions on a local and national level, introduced by Councilman Jones.
Chair recognizes Councilman Jones.
I gleefully move for the adoption of the resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution designating the week of Sunday, November 12, 2017 through Saturday, November 18, 2017 as Child Gun Safety Awareness Week in the city of Philadelphia, introduced by Councilman Johnson on behalf of Council President Clark.
Chair recognizes Councilman Johnson.
I move for the adoption of the resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution honoring and recognizing the Philadelphia Sunday Sun and its founder, Jerome Jerry Montezar, on the occasion of the Sun's 25th anniversary, introduced by Councilman Johnson.
Move for the adoption of the resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution honoring and recognizing Claudia Sherrod for her dedication to improving her neighborhood, Point Breeze, on the occasion of her retirement as Executive Director of South Philadelphia Homes, Inc., introduced by Councilman Johnson.
Chair recognizes Councilman Johnson.
I move for the adoption of the resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it. That resolution is adopted.
And a resolution honoring and commending Chicky and Pete's for 40 years as an iconic Philadelphia establishment, introduced by Councilman Johnson.
Chair again recognizes Councilman Johnson.
Before I move to the adoption of the resolution, I want to mention my two prime co-sponsors, Councilman Mark Squiller and also Councilman Bobby Heenan. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution authorizing Council's Standing Committee on Transportation and Public Utilities to hold hearings on the Philiport Capital Investment Program and future development of the port, introduced by Councilman Johnson.
Chair again recognizes Councilman Johnson.
I move for the adoption of the resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution authorizing the Standing Committee on Legislative Oversight to hold hearings to examine progress in implementation of Tax Reform Commission recommendations, the impact of implemented recommendations, and further opportunities for enhancing the competitiveness of Philadelphia's tax structure, introduced by Councilman Johnson.
Chair recognizes Councilman Johnson.
I move for the adoption of the resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution recognizing Kai Daly, founder of the Made Man Initiative, for her work inspiring, educating, and outfitting underserved men, introduced by Councilman Green.
Chair recognizes Councilman Green.
Thank you, Council President. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution recognizing and celebrating the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation's 50th anniversary as they honor the patients, caregivers, and professionals who strive to achieve a future free of Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis, introduced by Councilman Dom.
Chair recognizes Councilman Dom.
Thank you, Council President. Move for the adoption of the resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution recognizing Drexel University and the Task Force Dragon Battalion of the Reserve Officer Training Corps for providing a veteran-friendly community and producing quality leaders from the city of Philadelphia over the last 99 years, introduced by Councilman Taubenberger.
Chair recognizes Councilman Taubenberger.
Thank you, Mr. President. I thank all my colleagues here today for co-sponsoring, and I move for the adoption of the resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution honoring and recognizing the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts for its over 200-year history of providing Philadelphia with exhibitions on fine art, outstanding educational opportunities for artistic students, and for their fundraising abilities, introduced by Councilman Taubenberger.
Chair, one more time, recognizes Councilman Taubenberger.
And one more time, I thank all my colleagues here today for co-sponsoring, and I move for the adoption of the resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution authorizing the Committee on Public Health and Human Services to hold hearings on the Department of Human Services Community Umbrella Agencies scorecard, introduced by Councilwoman Bass.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Bass.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, the ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
There are no other resolutions on the final passage calendar, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Are there any speeches on behalf of the minority? Any speeches on behalf of the majority? And the chair recognizes Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. Earlier this month, myself and Councilman Green stood in front of the SRC building on Broad Street, where we were challenging the potential revoking of the charter for the charter school, Eastern Academy Charter School. This is an academy that was sponsored by Eastern University. It is a small school that services 330 students, grades 7 through 12, 41% male, 59% female. It is in an area where a lot of repurposing for the building is, so there is a useful purpose for the building. Well, the reason why we were standing out there is that there is a matrix by which the SRC decides whether a school should be closed or whether it should continue. This is well within their purview to do when it makes sense, when it is not arbitrary and capricious, when there is an apple-to-apple comparison. For you to look at a school and say, I'm going to compare this school to a school that is special admit, or to this school where folk have a different level of income, it is not a fair comparison. We think that matrix that really matter are when 350 plus parents decide to take their kid to a school. That's a matrix that matters to me. The climate, how young people get along, how they interact with each other, matters to me. When colleges and universities nationally decide that this kid is meritorious of being in my school, being admitted, getting scholarship, that's a matrix that matters to me. And when you decide that you're going to pull things out the air, and because I'm never going to question another man or woman's motivation or entity, but sometimes things get a little peculiar to me, right? When big fish eat little fish, that's nature. I learned that in biology and in public school. I've learned those things, but when big fish eat our children, that's a problem for me. And when you have these kinds of tensions between large oligopolies and monopoly charter schools that need to, because of their growth, need to have and eat smaller schools, our kids get devoured in the process. I'm going to tell you this, that 1 out of 3 African-American men is in jail, probation, or parole. That's not something I made up. Google it. And one of the reasons, the number one factor that is attributable to that is how our children are educated. We had a debate about prison to school pipeline. I heard a young lady talk about it today in public comment. And one of the things that they start to realize is that there are 48 zip codes in the city of Philadelphia. 11 of them are the census population for 90% of the young men and women in prison. Out of the 48 zip codes, 11 of them send 90% of the inmates up on State Road. Ironically, we've closed 23 schools in the city of Philadelphia, and most of them come from those zip codes. Coincidence? I don't know. But we're going to pay a lot more attention to these processes, and so that our kids aren't devoured in the process. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you so much, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Bass.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I want to applaud my colleague for his work on that issue. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the resolution I introduced earlier today about CUAs and DHS and the Improving Outcome for Children scorecard that was released. But before I go into that, I did want to, number one, on behalf of my colleague, Councilwoman Blondell Reynolds Brown and Jane Golden from Mural Arts, remind everyone that there is a council briefing today. It's going to be right after council in the caucus room, and we hope that everyone can come by and support Mural Arts and find out what new and interesting things they have going on. Always something great with Jane Golden. Also, I wanted to thank my council colleagues for their support in the Vote Your Main Street competition. And because of your votes, Germantown jumped from 7th place to 3rd place to 2nd place, and now we're in 1st place. Yeah. And so, just above some little towns in Arizona and Iowa, but which we won't even mention who they are. But we want to stay number one. And so Germantown residents who are actively keeping up with the contest sent me a chart tracking daily voting totals, and the biggest spike was last Thursday after you all voted and spread the word about the contest. Just a reminder, winning the Vote Your Main Street competition will provide preservation funding to 2 African-American historical sites in Germantown and national recognition for our great city. You can vote up to 5 times a day, every day, and the contest ends October 31st, which is next Tuesday. We're a body that loves voting, right? So we encourage everyone to vote early and often. It's legal. You can do it 5 times a day. There's nothing wrong with it. And I want to give a special thank you to Yvonne Haskins and the Germantown CDC, who have kept up with this issue and have kept our offices up to date. And this is really going to make a difference. So I just really wanted to encourage everyone again to go back to voting for the next few days, 5 times a day. And we really, really appreciate all of your support. We're number one, and this is a great thing for the city of Philadelphia. Right. So thank you for your support on that.
You're welcome.
And last but not least, I did want to just make some points about the report, the scorecard that was issued by DHS, and you know, just the information that was provided. I want to ask DHS, and we're going to have a hearing, obviously, but to go back to the drawing board on what they issued to us. 80% of the CUAs have at least 1 F. The rating system that was provided to us, in my opinion, was misleading. And DHS rated this on a system of Liberty Bells versus a traditional grading and scoring system, which would have been much more apparent that we are in really deep trouble with the CUA system that we have in place. When you break it down, 9 categories, each one was rated on 9 categories, and all have at least 1 D. 20% of those rated have 6 Ds. 30% have 5 Ds, and 20% have 4 Ds. I counted 39 Ds among 10 organizations. These are organizations charged with caring for our most vulnerable population, our children who are in distress. 80% have at least 1 F, 1 has 3 Fs, and 3 have 2 Fs. And what's most troubling is Wordsworth, which I know Councilman Jones has done a considerable amount of work in the tragedy that happened out in his district. Wordsworth had 2 Bs, 4 Cs, 1 D, and 2 Fs. So sort of a mixed bag if you look on the surface of it. And this is at an organization that had, we know now, a number of sexual assaults and a teenager who died under their care and supervision. And interestingly enough, Wordsworth received a B in supervision in this report. So if these were the grades that were received from an organization which was as troubled as Wordsworth, I can only imagine what if you dig a little bit deeper, what these other organizations really do look like. And so I look forward to the hearing, and I thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilwoman, and thank you for your continued good work. Appreciate it. There appears to be no additional speeches, so I will recognize Councilman Greenlee for a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that council stand adjourned on Thursday, November 2nd, 2017 at 10 a.m.
Thank you. It has been moved and properly seconded. Council stand adjourned until Thursday, November 2nd, 2017, 10 a.m. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it. Thank you all very much.